Welcome back to the Marathon series in depth. In this video, I will be playing and discussing the very first mission in the game titled Arrival. Some of the things we will be covering in this mission is our first chapter title screen, a bit about the creation of the map, settings and plugins I am using, our starting weapon, enemies we will encounter, pattern buffers, shield recharge stations, gameplay, terminals, jump pads, the demo versions of Arrival, previous versions of the level on LF1, and so on. It is a lot, so if there are certain parts of the video you are interested in, feel free to jump around to whichever chapters are of interest to you. I had to spend quite a bit of time thinking about how to organize these videos to keep them from becoming a complete mess, so hopefully they ended up okay. To start out, let's talk about the chapter screen. When you first boot up Marathon, you will come across the following screen. Somewhere in the heavens, they are waiting. This same quote exists at the start of the manual. Obviously, it is the Pfhor who are waiting to find us. When you click New Game from the main menu, you will see the first chapter screen for the game. The first chapter is also titled Arrival, the same as the mission. The chapter screen shows an image of the maneuvering pod approaching the Marathon. Remember, in the manual introduction, the Marathon was destroyed by the Pfhor Fighter. You can see the shrapnel from the destroyed Marathon in this image. For some weird reason, the maneuvering pod is not symmetrical. We actually can't see the backside of the maneuvering pod in any other image in the game besides this one. The maneuvering pod has the title Leonardo on the back, suggesting that this is the name of the maneuvering pod. This is likely a reference to Leonardo da Vinci, but I am not sure why Bungie went with this name. The level name for Arrival has gone through several changes throughout its development. Here are the names we know about. At some point, the original level design notes for the first Marathon game were provided to the Marathon story page by Bungie's Matt Sell. You can clearly see the level design notes that the name was originally Welcome and changed to Arrival. The map Arrival was originally called Origin in one of the leaked betas according to the Marathon story page. Both demo versions of the level also had an exclamation mark at the end of the name Arrival. If you take a look at the Marathon map file in Hex Editor, you can find portions of what the older versions of the title may have been. There are a few suggestions of what the title may have been on the story page, but the most likely answer is, Oh, the Humanity. It is also important to consider that Arrival is 7 letters long. The first map was primarily made by Jason Jones and Greg Kirkpatrick. Here's what Jason Jones had to say about this level. I did everything before the maze. Greg finished the level. We always thought that we could have done a better first level, but I think it did set the tone for the rest of the game. As we will see in the mission, the beginning of this level is quite a bit different than the second half, which makes sense that they changed in level designers. In the first half of the level, there is a neat effect where it looks like there is light coming through one of the ship windows. Jason Jones discussed designing this sort of effect in an interview. If you've seen any of the map editors in Marathon, we can create a small segment of the floor that looks like a beam of light coming out of a door. We light that segment very bright and light the area around it very dark, so it looks like there's light coming out of the door. It's a very common trick with engines like the one that we used. You are able to create some pretty neat lighting effects by changing the geometry of your floor. You plan the geometry of your floor ahead of time so it looks like the light casting out of a doorway. In general, the beginning of the level is one of the more scenic areas of the trilogy. You can tell that Jason Jones spent time on it. It turns out that Bungie wasn't as happy with how the first few levels turned out as compared to the levels later on. I realized that we still didn't do as well as we could in Marathon. The first levels in Marathon aren't as good as the later ones. They aren't as well thought out. The geometry isn't as good, they're sort of boring, and the monsters aren't that exciting. Also, the writing at the beginning isn't as good as the writing at the end. But I think Marathon is much more open to first-time users than Pathways was. It seems that this was a general sentiment among the Bungie staff, as Greg Kirkpatrick explained the reasoning for this. One thing I think we did figure out by Infinity was this: do not make the first map of a game first. The first level of Marathon 1 was really one of the weaker ones. You see so many games where they obviously do the first area first, and you just have to hold your nose and get through it. For new weapons in this level, we got the 45 Magnum Mega Class. Here is what the Marathon Manual says about this gun. This text is produced with permission from the UESC Marathon Defense Planning Commission Report 1359-F, Military Supply Supplement. 45 Magnum Mega Class. Standard issue for all security officers and active duty field personnel. Utilizes 8 shot clips of 45 caliber, high velocity, vacuum enabled Teflon rounds. Teflon maintains a stable flight for accuracy. Titanium construction results in a sturdy, reliable, lightweight firearm. The pistol we get in Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity is a bit different, so we will discuss the changes to the gun when we get there. Here's what the Marathon Strategy Guide has to say about the pistol. Although the pistol is by no means a powerhouse weapon, its pinpoint accuracy makes up for this deficiency. Using 8-shot clips, the pistol is especially useful when used to snipe at the enemy from long distances. In later stages of the game, you'll be able to pick up extra pistols and use 2 of them at once. Yes, it's extremely cool. They won't fire at the same time, but will alternate from one to the other. The pistol does less damage than a running punch does. However, as the strategy guide points out, its accuracy and long range makes it very effective and a valuable weapon to have even later in the game. In the manual, the Magnum looks sort of like a revolver. However, the gun is loaded with a clip in the game, which is a bit strange. The image of the pistol in Marathon 2 seems to have corrected this oversight. The gun looks eerily similar to a hand cannon in Destiny called the Duke MK44. Perhaps they looked at the Marathon 1 pistols and they're designed for that gun. In the Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity shapefiles, this Magnum is called the Dawn Pistola, and the ammo is called Pistola Ammo. We have 2 new enemies in this mission. The first is the Pfhor Fighters. The Marathon Strategy Guide tells us a bit about the fighters. Fighters may not have much meat on their bones, but they sure can pack a punch, especially when they attack in bunches. Using their long staff, they'll swat you with deadly precision. Members of the Pfhor family, these fierce soldiers come in 4 variations. Green Fighters, definitely the most tame aliens on the Marathon. The Green Fighters are slow and, well, dumb. These guys make good punching bags. Purple Fighters, similar to the Green Fighters, but more ferocious. They attack faster and more often and take more fire to kill. Orange Fighters, these fighters can take the same amount of damage as the Green Fighters, but they fire projectiles and run slightly faster. Blue Fighters, watch out for these guys. They always fire 2 projectiles when they get you in their sight, and they run even faster than the Purple Fighters. Fighters won't give you too much trouble. A few punches or pistol shots will take them out. But one note of caution, do not let a bunch of these guys surround you. They're most deadly when they've got you cornered. These fighters could use a few Big Macs, skinny but tough little guys. In the Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity files, the Pfhor Fighters are referred to as minors and majors. This is in the Monster.h file specifically. The Green Fighters are called Monster Fighter Minor. The Purple Fighters are called Monster Fighter Major. The Orange Fighters are called Monster Fighter Minor Projectile. And lastly, the Blue Fighters are called Monster Fighter Major Projectile. In this playthrough, we will only be fighting against the Purple and Blue Fighters since I'll be playing on Total Carnage. On this difficulty, all of the monsters are automatically promoted. In general, a running punch is one of the more effective ways to take out the 4 fighters if you need to conserve ammo. A rival is a great place to practice your punching skills. The 4 fighters in the game can berserk, which is a similar concept to how the Mercurium berserk in Bungie's Myth games. The 4 fighters will berserk when their health gets low, and at that point they will attack anything in their path, including their own allies. Unlike Myth though, their allies won't fight back against the berserking enemy, which causes this feature to be much more useful. In addition, when a monster is berserking, it will attack at a much higher frequency, making them much more deadly. Enemy projectiles can hit their own and cause their own units to berserk, which allows for some interesting tactics. Getting enemy 4 to berserk against each other is a tactic used by vidmasters. The Pfhor Fighters will not be the only enemy within the Marathon Trilogy that berserks. There is some concept art for the Pfhor Fighters on the Marathon story page. The next new enemy we will meet in this mission is a Sphit, also known as compilers. The pronunciation comes from the third movie in the Forge tutorial that comes with the Marathon Trilogy box set.
We'll take the simple route this time and choose the Sphit door from the type menu.
Here's what the strategy guide says about the compilers. Compilers come in two flavors, orange and purple. Orange compilers open their cloaks and fire green unguided projectiles, which are pretty easy to dodge if you have enough time. Purple compilers, however, fire yellow guided projectiles, which can take a lot of practice to evade. Generally, to avoid being hit, you'll need to run around a corner or make a sudden direction change just before the projectile reaches you. But compilers are pretty easy targets, since they tend to approach slowly before stopping to fire. Also, for some reason, they don't fire back when you shoot at them in close range, something to keep in mind. The only compilers you should worry about are the invisible ones, since they tend to sneak up on you before firing. Compilers might look cool, but the projectiles tend to sting a bit. Again, in the monster.h file, the compilers are referred to as minors and majors, and it's pretty obvious that the orange ones are the minors and the purple ones are the majors with the following projectiles. At this point in the game, we don't know much about this Sphit. We will learn more as the game progresses, but I don't want to spoil things for you who may be unfamiliar with the games. What we do know for now is that they can interface with the ship's terminals and cause all sorts of havoc on the Marathon. We will learn a little bit more about this in this very mission. Again, we have some concept art for this Sphit, and also some art that Craig Mullins did for the chapter screens for the sequels. From the images you can see that the compilers have sort of a cybernetic look. They have a cloak on them almost like they are some sort of scholar. This sort of fits them as their primary strength is hacking into computers. They also have a glowing spot on their chest, almost like it's some sort of power source. While the Pfhor Fighters leave their carcass on the ground, the compilers completely disintegrate when they die. I don't believe there is an actual lore explanation for this, but if anyone has any interesting theories, feel free to share. When the compilers are hit and when they die, they briefly have some sort of static look like the old TVs used to make. This is likely because they are some sort of cybernetic creature. We will learn more about this later on. In most of the missions, although not all, we will be saving our progress at save terminals called pattern buffers. Here's what the manual says about them. To save your game, you must find a pattern buffer device which looks like a graphic displayed here. Walk up to it and press the action key and your complete biochemical electrical pattern is stored for later retrieval. The manuals in the sequels have the same text but add on, handy, eh? The Marathon Strategy Guide doesn't add any interesting info on top of this. How exactly do these pattern buffers have our complete biochemo-electrical pattern anyways? How are they put everywhere? Trying to think about this from a lore perspective really makes my head hurt, as it creates all sort of issues from a lore perspective. I mean, if anyone on the Marathon could go back in time to the last time they uploaded the data into one of these things, then wouldn't they make them basically immortal? Or perhaps there is a better explanation for this. The texture image of the pattern buffer has some sort of image that looks like it is displaying your biochemo-electrical data. At the bottom in red it says successful. I don't know what the green text says. People nowadays are worried about having people use their phone data inappropriately. Imagine if you had your entire biological data sitting there on the web. Throughout the game we will also run across shield recharge stations, which are obviously used to restore our shields. The first Marathon manual actually doesn't even mention these recharge stations. Here's what the Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity manuals say about them. You will inevitably take some damage while battling the enemy. Lucky for you, your suit has a universal coupling recharge plug that will fit into sockets like the one shown here. Shields can be fully charged 1 time, 2 times, or 3 times, depending on which recharge station it is. This effectively tells you how many times you can fill up your health meter at the recharge station. Most of the recharge stations early on only charge to 1 times though. We talked a little bit about them before, but we will also be reading lots and lots of terminals throughout the series. The terminals are where we will be communicating with the ship's artificial intelligences. Marathon's AIs contain valuable information and instructions. Be sure to visit all of them. At the end of the mission, there will be a highlighted square texture on the ground, which is likely a jump pad that will allow us to leave the level once we reach the exit terminal. Throughout the first Marathon game, a large portion of the exit terminals end with the phrase, "Jump pad activation initiation start, transport when ready." I believe Arrival is the only level in the series with the jump pad visibly shown though. Later on in the game, we will find the Marathon AIs can only transport us from certain terminals. This must mean that not all terminals have a jump pad or other means of allowing teleportation. Perhaps Bungie was originally planning to put the jump pads on all the terminals that we were able to finish the mission at. Here is what the manual says about the jump pads. Life in the glorious 28th century. Walking into a jump pad will instantly transport you to a new location. The computer will usually tell you which jump pads transport you where. Interestingly, there was no reference that I was able to find of jump pads within Marathon 2 or Marathon Infinity. I wonder why they dropped the lingo. The Marathon Strategy Guide talks briefly about the jump pad also. Jump pads are designed to instantly teleport you from one place in Marathon to another. You'll encounter these important gateways throughout the game, but most of the time they'll just whisk you from the level you just finished to the next one. Sorry, no baboons are allowed in the jump pads. Beam me up, Scotty. In this series, I will be playing the game on Total Carnage. I'm going to try to have one video per level. Since there is not a pattern buffer at the end of every level, I may have to get a little inventive on how I do my recordings. There is obviously ways to cheat to save the level wherever you like, but I am going to try avoid doing that. It might mean I end up recording multiple levels at a time in some scenarios and coming back later to splice them up into neat and organized videos. The only plugin I will be using for the first Marathon game is the M1A1 full screen corner HUD version 1.0. This HUD fits the first game fairly well. I will be running the HUD normal sized, but if you guys wish, I could try the double size instead. The problem with the original full screen HUD is that it doesn't work with widescreen resolutions, and I think it would detract from the quality of the videos. The Total Texture Enhancement Pack, aka TTEP version 7.0 by Tim Vogel, is a really good plugin to improve the overall look of the first game while still being mostly true to the original. I will probably just stick to the original look, but if you would prefer me to play with that plugin, let me know and perhaps we will do a poll. Alright, here we are on the first level. Got a locked door behind us, just starting here. We could go read this terminal, but there's actually some enemies out here that are asleep. So we're gonna go ahead and run down this hallway into this room. So we got a little bit more room to run around and punch and avoid fighters. One of them got me in the back. So that's just because there's gonna be some more coming down this hallway. It's kind of best to come in here and just run around in circles while you punch them. Some good practice. You can tell like I'm trying to like get a running head start at them to try to do some more damage. You can see one of them's berserking there. Any more? There's definitely more in here. I don't think they came. Let's see if they're here. I just dwindle them down while they come down the hallway. It can be a little tricky to not take any damage because you get, I don't know, it's just the physics can be a little tricky. Alright, so here we are back at the start. This is where we started. Turn my sensitivity down just a bit. So here's the first terminal. We'll read that in a second, but you can kind of look out the window to the side. It's kind of nice. Got a little barrel here. Not a lot to see. One thing you'll notice is this door right here. If you look out to the side, you kind of tell there's like an area that behind this door that you can't see. Anyways, let's read this terminal. Welcome to the first terminal in the game. There will be many of these throughout the series. The terminal says that this is airlock 34A, terminal access port. The lock door we start at must be airlock 34A. The top left says opening connection to beta 4523. This text appears on all the terminals in the series, so it must mean that we are connecting to the Marathon AI system, or something of the sort. The number on the top right of the image is actually a clock, although it doesn't really match up at all with real time. The first 4 digits is a time of day in a 2400 format, and then it's month, day, year. Based on this date, it should be the year 2337. However, we will learn that this is in fact the year 2794, as confirmed by the Lost Network backwards. The month and day is also incorrect. The clock does progress, but it doesn't progress based on the amount of time you play. Instead, it progresses by 7 minutes every 2 to 3 times you go to a different terminal screen. You can go to the next and previous screen to see it quickly change. Marathon 2 and Marathon Infinity have a very similar setup, but instead the minute progresses based off actual minute passing. The time on the bottom left has something about Cyber Acme Systems Incorporated. This appears on just about every terminal within the series. Cyber Acme Systems must have designed all of these terminals. The text on the bottom right is also the same on every terminal in the series. This must be the version number of the software used by Cyber Acme Systems. On the second page of the terminal we see the text UESC term 802.11 remote override. Again, this text appears on all the terminals in the series. I'm not sure the reason for remote override. Perhaps the AI changes the text that would be on the terminal to give us a message specifically. Let's read the first part of the terminal. Message to all Marathon terminals. Marathon emergency system broadcast. Today at 0820 hours, the Marathon came under surprise attack by unknown hostile forces. The Marathon has sustained serious damage. At 0830 hours, alien forces boarded the Marathon. The current situation is dire. All personnel are required to arm themselves and fight for their lives. Posted 2794 7 3 14 8 39. We learn that the Marathon attack started at 0820 and the alien forces first boarded the Marathon at 0830. It only took them 10 minutes to get on board. The message has a posted date, though it is a bit difficult to decipher the date as it has some extra numbers in there. 2794 is in fact the current year. Based on the Lost Network packets we will discuss later, it is assumed that the date of the Marathon attack was on July 25th. This would suggest that the 7 in the post date is in fact the correct month. However, the following 3 and 14 have no meaning. 0839 is the time that the message was posted. In the demo, this terminal left out the discussion about the aliens boarding the Marathon at 0830. Also, the time of the end was changed from 5239 to 0839. Perhaps they fixed that time, but missed that the day of the month was incorrect. Let's move to the next part of the terminal. Incoming message from Leela. Welcome to the Marathon. I am Leela, one of the 2 surviving artificial intelligences aboard the Marathon. I've been severely damaged, and I'm working to understand the current situation. Find the teleport terminal located in the hangar's control room. By that time, I should have a better idea of what is going on. End message. Leela has written us a personalized introduction. It is nice to be greeted by the ship's AI. As we know, the 2 surviving AIs are Leela and Durandal. We already met Durandal, and he was not very welcoming. Leela is much more helpful, although she is severely damaged. She tells us to get to the terminal that has a teleporter while she figures out what is going on. Note that she has no mention of Durandal going crazy, so perhaps she is unaware of our interaction with him on the Murata. Reading on. This is where you are now. From here you can explore the rest of the hangar area, although not all the doors on the level are functioning. There is a door that we will run across shortly that would allow us to reach the exit terminal right away. Instead, we are going to have to take the long way around. There is a pattern buffer at this location. There is a jump pad at this location. Activate the terminal to leave the hangar area. In the demo, there was actually some additional text before the 3 maps. Here's what it said. Incoming message from Bungie. Here are some useful carrots, Carnage rule of thumb. Use the auto map M key. Learn to dodge. Use the sidestep controls. Don't waste ammo. Run, use the run key. Learn to vid. This is learn to look up and down at will. This is also useful for finding cool things. Become one with the motion sensor. Keep an open mind and a loose trigger finger. Save early and often. Games can be saved at pattern buffers, which are the insert panels with the red lights on them. Walk up to a buffer and press the tab key. This is really just some basic stuff that doesn't add anything interesting in particular. That is it for the first terminal of the game. The original level design notes mention this terminal, telling us that we are going to get a bigger gun soon. The final terminal ended up not mentioning this at all. The next mission is titled Bigger Guns Nearby, so we will get to see bigger guns soon enough. Let's continue. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and go in here. You can kind of see a little bit more outside. Some sides of the ship, which is kind of cool. We can go down here. It looks like there's some like computers or something. You know, this place down here looks a little trashier. I don't know if that's... It almost looks like trash, but I don't think that's what it's meant to be. I don't know. There's a few ammo there down there, and we got some more 44 clips, and also we got an MA75 clip, which we don't have that gun yet. So then we come down this hallway a little more, and we come out, and we can see the hangar. Look at the map. This is hangar 7A port, and there's our maneuvering pod. You can kind of see down to another part of the ship. Let's go down a little farther. Here's a little room. This obviously would go to the hangar 7A port, but this door is locked. This door is partly open, and it's also stuck. And there's the enemy 4 in there that we just alerted. But they can't get to us. That's one of the locked doors that not operating that Leela talked about. So we got to get these enemies in here. There's one projectile guy in here. We're gonna go ahead and use our gun, take him out. Kind of getting lazy with the punches. The projectile guys kind of like start hitting their own, so you see why some of them are weak. So this is the observation deck. You look outside, there's the 4th ship out there in space. Okay, we come up here. And you see it looks like this room. It looks like there's like this, you go up the stairs to the left, you kind of go around. There's kind of like this column blocking the way. So you hit the switch, which by the way you can either punch or select, and then it'll slowly open. And again, we got the 4th ship out there. This is our first save of the game. We can go ahead and save it. Rather than doing this, like if you can kind of see the fixes of the game, like it kind of, rather than like continuing on like whichever direction you're facing, or like rather than continuing in a straight line, like if I turn when I jump off, it will follow the direction I'm looking. So the physics is a little weird because it's based on the orientation of continuing the direction of which way your camera is looking, rather than the direction, you know, XYZ, you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but basically your forward momentum will carry based on the direction you're looking. So we can keep that in mind and do a lot of tricks with that. But here you can just run across. You don't really need that switch per se. So all right, let's come on down here into the air ducts. First off, let's come down here. There's really nothing down here. We're just gonna... Oh, there is this pattern buffer with this fit. So this fit's kind of on the pattern buffer. Who knows what he's doing? He's hacking into some people's what was it? The biomolecular, electrical, or whatever it was. So let's take him out. So we could shoot him, and if we're close to him and we're shooting him, he won't be able to fight back while we're shooting. However, he will be able to fight back while we're reloading. So it's best just to use your fists. And we just... Oh, I accidentally switched guns. Well, now I'm hurting. I don't know how I must have hit the switch weapon button or something. I don't know. That almost killed me. It's alright, we should be fine. So we can save it here. The save is so close to the other one, this is almost worthless or pointless. If we go down here, we can see we'll find some dead ends. These are kind of areas you can drop off from above, and we probably won't even do these drop-offs, you know? But just because it's kind of not helpful. Okay, let's go back a bit. We're back in here. There's the elevator right here, but first off, we're gonna do a little jump here. So there's just kind of platform over there we can land on right there. So if we just kind of move our camera like so, you can make that jump. It's just as simple as moving the camera. So here's this fit down here, and as long as I punch him, we'll be fine. And after we take him out, we'll read this terminal behind him. You can kind of look at them while you're punching them and waiting for them to die. We won't punch a lot of compilers in this game, but in this level, when you're kind of in this close quarters, this is the most surefire way to kill them. Why there is a terminal in the middle of the maze, I have no idea. Doesn't seem like many people would come this way. This is the first infiltrated terminal per the original level design notes. Hangar Area 5, Engineer Access. Why is this Hangar 5? I don't know, as on the map it says that the maneuvering pod was in Hangar 7A. I would just chalk this up to an inconsistency in the game, as there are quite a few. Unauthorized access alarm. Security breached. Garbage. Spurious interrupt breach disabled. Farther access denied. We see that the unauthorized access and security breaches suggest that the compiler was hacking into the Marathon. This text is almost entirely garbage text. Some of the characters will turn into words if you look at them in hexadecimal. The string of numbers that means rocket with an exclamation mark appears twice in the text. Perhaps this is hinting of a secret we will find. Some of the characters are bold, and there appears to be no specific reason for this. This terminal was virtually the same in the demo. Let's move on with the game. Alright, let's go back up and up the elevator. So there's one more compiler we gotta kill up here before we get to the health. So there's one right here. Oh no, sorry. This. So he's gonna come. We're just gonna wait here and then take him out. We'll just bring him to us. Do. Alright, and there's a bunch of ammo in here. Now, we want to take that jump. This jump, you can kind of see on the map, this just goes to one of those dead ends. This one goes to another one of those dead ends. Well, this goes to it, this goes back to the observation deck area. I'll probably show you that later. So we want to take that jump right there. That one, yeah, we already showed that. That takes to one of those dead ends. So we want to take this one. So we come down here, we go down a little, there's a barrel. We're gonna jump down here in a little bit. This is kind of like, we'll need to go that way to complete the mission. So this is complete maze. If this is confusing you, yeah, I don't really expect you to keep track of everywhere I'm going. But there we got our first shield recharge station, which is really important. We come this way, and we'll take out this fit. And there's another terminal. So this fit was sitting on this terminal also. And it just takes a while to kill them. We don't have a lot of great guns yet, so... I guess it's kind of good I messed up on one of them so you can kind of see its attack. But here, let's read this terminal. This terminal is also from Hangar Area 5 and has a lot of garbled text as a result of the compiler we just killed. This is the second infiltrated terminal per the level design notes. Unauthorized access, alarm 2521. Security breached, 50-H. Garbage. Fire and at 3DC39 aspects of the theory are as follows. Each society has some controlling force or forces which decide its direction, but the relationship in society are arbitrary. Humanity can relate to money, machines, neighbors, anything really. Logical reset. Individual characters and personalities are preserved in stories, movies, ROM personalities, etc. Although individual expression is a universal ability, individual freedom is constrained by the society. See attached figure. Spurious interruption breach disabled. Further access denied. Breach location undetermined. Perhaps the text is all garbled up because of the compiler that was on the terminal. Was he accessing information on the Marathon somehow? This seems to be the case with the unauthorized access alarm and security breach messages at the start of the terminal. It seems that the compiler is learning a bit about how humanity functions in relation to society and individuals. We already learned in the manual that the Pfhor are slavers, and it seems that they are already trying to learn about how they can enslave humanity. Things are not looking good. Leela had mentioned that she was damaged. Perhaps it is because the compiler is accessing the terminals and messing things up with the AI. Perhaps this is what happened to Tycho. The terminal changed a bit from the demo. Here is how the middle section reads in the demo. Fire and brimstone, 7 riders of the apocalypse, labyrinth of dreams of Armageddon, irregular removal of tissue, happenstance, conflagrate, condign, pinnacle of spiritual blistering. This text seems to be some sort of strange end time sort of message. While this is mostly garbled in an incomprehensive message, it does help us understand the terminal in the game a bit better, as the fire and was still retained in the original version of the terminal. It does look like one of the goals of the terminals was to have some junk text in there just to give off the impression that the Marathon AIs were not functioning properly and the compilers were screwing around with things. Let's continue with the game. Alright, and here we go. So down here, there's a little nice area. Come down, you get some ammo. So we got some more pistol ammo and another MA75 clip. So this is actually looking back across the hangar 7A port, right to where we started. And if you kind of look down here, you can kind of see the maneuvering plot a little bit. So there's some barrels in here. But that's it for this room. These elevators are a little slow in the first Marathon game. It's a little obnoxiously slow. Alright, so here we are. We're gonna jump in here and fight these guys. There's like a few blue projectile guys. So on the most part, if you keep moving around them in a circle, you'll be fine. They'll have to just kill each other. Okay, then there's this door that's locked behind us, and we use this switch to open it. There's a couple of Pfhor Fighters down here that we saw underneath that door that may be awake. Let's see. Let's see where they are. There they are. Okay, here we go. Alright, so here's that door. This terminal exits the level, so we'll come back and get that in a little bit. There's a few more things I want to show you. So we can press this switch and open the door. And now we're back kind of near the starting area. This was back behind the hangar. And this hallway goes back to the beginning. So let's just run through and I'll show you a couple more things before we finish the level. Let's show you the let's show you that kind of duct that goes back to the observation deck area real quick, and then I'll show you a secret, and then we'll finish the mission. So it's this way. Oh geez. So if you jump down right here, yep, this is it. You kind of get in this trapped area, and you open this door, and you're back at the observation deck area, which is kind of cool. You look up there, that's where it came from, and it'll automatically close after a second. So there's that. I wanted to show you that, and then there's one secret I'm going to show you before we finish the mission. Well, before we check out this last terminal. So we got to jump across here again. Okay, so this is overlooking that room before we killed all those blue projectile guys. So we want to jump around to here. So now we're kind of like on the wall looking down, right? But right here, there's a secret. And you can see there's a couple rockets, some napalm canisters, some grenades for our MA-75, which we haven't got yet. So basically, we got a bunch of ammo for guns we haven't got yet. But that's still really good. So, for the sake of me, I'm just going to go back and save it over here real quick before we go to this terminal, just so that it's just going to make it easier for me for the next video. Alright, so here we are. Let's go read this terminal. Notice this little pad here that we talked about. Again, we are in Hangar Area 5. I am starting to think that this is Hangar 5 and not 7A, but I digress. Incoming message from Leela. All of the information I've gathered so far indicates that the alien invasion of the Marathon has been relatively uncoordinated. I suspect that this is partially due to the Marathon's large size. However disorderly the alien invasion is, the assault of the computer net has been extremely effective. I detect security breaches in almost every computer system on board the Marathon. I have learned that there is an alien creature that is capable of interfacing with our systems. You must kill any of these creatures that you find. It is a priority that we stop them. Even now, they are penetrating my defenses. Teleport now. End message. Jump pad activation initiation start. Transport when ready. For not being very well coordinated, the attack on the Marathon by the Pfhor has been quite devastating. It has also been very quick when you realize that the attack only took 10 minutes before the Pfhor were on board. Our theories that the compilers are interfacing with the Marathon's computer system is correct, as Leela tells us. They are in fact penetrating Leela's defenses. This is not good at all. The demo text on this terminal are quite similar, but a bit different. The interesting line in the demo text is the following. I detect over 400 separate security breaches, and each moment there are more. This tells us at the time of the message, 400 compilers had already hacked into the computer's system. No wonder the Marathon's AIs are struggling. The original level notes mentioned that we are going to a storage area to get a bigger gun. This terminal didn't end up mentioning this in the final version either. This would sort of make sense though, that we would want to get a bigger gun to fight off the aliens, and that is exactly what we are going to do. While we beat the mission, there are still quite a few things we need to discuss. The room that we can see through the window with the maneuvering pod is called Hangar 7A Port. The word hangar is misspelled. Again, we see the number 7. Based on the map, it looked like we had to go around the outside of the ship from the maneuvering pod to get to the door that we came in on. There is actually space on the map for room beyond the locked door at the start. Perhaps this space was the airlock. In addition, the room with the partially closed door that we open later on sort of looks like a decompression room. This is probably where people would normally enter the Marathon from Hangar 7A. Or is it Hangar 5? It seems that either the Pfhor or Durandal were messing with the doors to the room, so we had to enter where we did. Leela did tell us in the first terminal that the final terminal is in the hangar's control room. As far as the decompression room that we came in at, I'm not sure why there is a decompression room randomly on the outside of the ship. Perhaps this would be sort of a passenger boarding bridge where larger ships that were not intending to dock could connect to. Starting the level with a locked door to a room we can't get into is very similar to the start in Pathways into Darkness. In this mission, there are a couple of rooms that we can see the Pfhor ship outside the window. Is this the Pfhor mothership, or is this a fighter that destroyed the Marauder? The main room that we can see the ship from is called Observation Deck number 221. This is the room with the neat lighting effects through the windows. With the name of the room, It seems Bungie was intending this to be the focus for the room with the title. It is also a nice big room for punching the Pfhor. I like the level design that allows you to see the room on the opposite side of the hangar also. In this level, you will notice that the game has some of the same shadow effects from Pathways into Darkness. Notice how when you are in a dark room, that the area closer to you is lit up, allowing you to see a bit. The name for the soundtrack for this mission is called Landing. It creates a bit of an eerie atmosphere, which is fitting for our first encounter with the aliens. The security officer is just starting to figure out what he is getting himself into. Between the shadow effects and the music, this creates a somewhat spooky environment. It took a while for the Marathon community to rediscover the names of each of the songs. Take a look at the Marathon story page if you are interested to know what that journey looked like. The maze-like area was likely intended to originally be an air duct. Take a look at the original level design notes. In the final version of the game, it doesn't look too much like an air duct. However, the door that comes out of the observation deck area looks a lot like an air duct entering the room once you open it. It seems that some of the ideas for these air ducts was not fully realized. Once we emptied out the room and came back to the observation deck, you will notice that the new enemies had spawned. This happens a bit in the first Marathon game, where a certain number of enemies are backfilled after you have killed them. You won't notice a lot of this in the series. If you hit F6, you can see your security guard in third person, and some of the attention to detail that was given to the player sprite. There are different sprites for each of the different weapons in the game. This attention to detail was obviously added for multiplayer purposes. Which hand he is holding his gun in is not always accurate, as Bungie would use the same sprite and just mirror it depending on what angle you were looking at the player. You will notice in third person that the security guard holds the Magnum with his left hand, while in first person it was with his right hand. In M1A1, which is the earlier port of the game, similar to Alpha-1, the beginning of the level was modified to show some areas similar to the ground floor in Pathways into Darkness. Originally with M1A1, the map was created in Marathon 2 format, and the starting area was added in along with some other secrets that didn't exist in the original game. Now Alpha-1 reads the original game map files, so it's as close to authentic to the original version as possible without running an emulator or playing on the original hardware. You can actually get the M1A1 version to work in the current Alpha-1 version by creating a copy of the Marathon game folder and putting all of the M1A1 stuff inside of it and tweaking some of the settings. In some of the early Alpha-1 ports of the game, you could actually shoot through the windows. Thankfully they fixed that so we don't get sucked out of the ship into space. There were quite a few other small differences that have been fixed over the years to get the game to more closely match the original. I won't bother going into all of these differences as most of them don't mean much when it comes to knowing what the original game was like, and also, they just aren't that interesting. There are quite a few differences in this level between the demo version and the final release version. We already talked about some of the differences in the terminals. The demos had no maneuvering pod in Hangar 7A. I am glad that they added it as it creates a stronger ties to the story. The barrel near the beginning of the level and some other barrels in the level are also missing. In the demo, the room with the first Fathom buffer has a weird phenomenon where one of the Pfhor Fighters will go inside of the platform that blocks your path until you raise it when you hit the switch. You are able to hear the Pfhor Fighter making noise from within the column. The fighter will die if you hit the switch to raise the platform. You are also able to punch and shoot him through the wall somehow. There are certain angles where you can also even see his dead body. Obviously, this is some sort of weird glitch that was fixed in the final version. Interestingly, in the demo version, there is a secret room with a locked door that can only be opened up from the inside, and inside that room is a Bob. The secret room was located in the maze section of the ship. There's a glitch in the demo where the Bobs were able to teleport up elevator platforms. This is most easily visible in the demo level for Blasphemy Quarantine. Bobs could jump down the elevator also. Near the beginning of the level in the demo, you could hear an elevator in the far off distance. Where could this elevator be? It seems that this is the elevator in the room on the opposite side of the map with the window overlooking Hangar 7A. Interestingly, you could easily get trapped in this room permanently in the demo. I am glad they fixed that. In the same room, there was also a napalm canister in the demo. You can see Erickson pick it up. The word canister is misspelled in the demo with 2 N's instead of 1. In the released version of the game, this room has some Magnum ammo and M75 assault rifle ammo instead of the napalm canister. We haven't gotten the M75 assault rifle yet. Also note that the final version of this room had some barrels also. There are also some demo version 0.0 films that came with the demo that were supposedly done by Jason Jones. There are some differences in the demos between version 0.0 and version 1.2, however I am not sure exactly what the differences are. If you know any of these differences, please share in the comments. Well, that's it for this mission. There was a ton of stuff covered in this video, but I am thankful that you guys stuck it out. I hope you enjoyed it. Future videos should be quite a bit shorter, but we will see how that goes. See you guys next time in Bigger Guns Nearby, where we will be getting a bigger gun.